Okay, so we're going to get started. Again, I'm recording this for that student who cannot be with us. This is BUSI 607, Fundamentals of Leadership. So as you're just finishing now, completing the Leadership Skills Inventory Assessment, did you have any ahas as you were looking through that list? See any things that grabbed you and made you go, well, maybe I should do this, or maybe I haven't?
Ahas that I was familiar with.
Yeah, everything. Yeah. So you know where your strengths and weaknesses are, right?
I think I do.
Do you see any patterns?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think you have to think twice about some of them, because it's like, you know, you feel like you're doing what this says, but if you think back, is there a time and place that you have gone outside?
Yeah, and you need to think in general, not specific cases. I did X or I did Y, right? Sure. Okay. Anybody else? Lillian, did you have a comment? You looked up at me.
No.
No. Okay.
I think it's definitely hard to quantify.
It is.
Which, if you could just quantify it.
It is. And in truth, what you've just done is meaningless. What matters is what your people would say about you.
Yep.
Right? So if you took a number of these to work and you asked the people that report to you if they were willing to give you the legitimate feedback, and they did this anonymously, and you could quantify it, so comparing what you just did against what they say, that's where you actually get some real great value. Now that's a hard thing to get to, okay? Because sometimes people don't want to give that honest feedback. If you were insecure as a leader, then you might be, somewhat threatening to them in that, and you don't necessarily know whether you're threatening or not. You're trying to give yourself the best, the most honest answers you can. Sir?
What's interesting is a few things that were the things that I know about, but they still are ahas centered around my journey in improving my EQ skills.
Okay. There you go. So, and that's good to see where are the issues, because usually you know yourself well enough where you can kind of get in the neighborhood, but if there's any patterns that emerge from that, and we'll talk about this when we get into the servant leadership training course. Okay, so now you also just read a new vision for the Chicago Police Department, a case study. What do you think? Just in general, just whatever's top of your head.
Complicated issue.
Complicated. Excellent. Because there's no easy answer here. And if you think there's an easy answer, you're wrong.
Yeah.
It's not simple. Pat answers won't work. Very good. What else?
Well, it's not an easy answer, but what I see is, well, it causes more questions than answers, so yeah, it goes along with what you said there, but it makes me wonder what they're hiring for, or how they're hiring people based on personality characteristics, things like that.
Okay. Did you have something?
I was just piggybacking on that. It's just, they say they're going to hire 1,000 police officers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do they even know what they need to fix these complicated problems, or are they just going to hire 1,000?
1,000 of the same thing is only going to get you right back where you are.
Correct.
Right? You're going to get more of the resentment and bitterness, so you need to do something
so do
else.
They have a plan for the strengths that they need to try to help.
That's good. That's good thinking.
That kind of stuff.
Good. What else?
Yeah.
The quiet side of the room. That's your turn, quiet side of the room. I'm waiting for the quiet side.
I mean, I agree with it. I believe he said it's complicated. I mean, that pretty much sums it up, because it really is not only just in Chicago, everywhere.
Okay.
There's just a lot going on. They haven't really defined. They know those murders are going up. The police officers are disgruntled with filling out this 2-page report versus the shorter version. So they're just throwing, how do I say it? They're just throwing darts at a board, but they don't really know what they're trying to do. They're just, shooting from the hip, or I'm using all these slang terms or whatever, but they haven't defined the problem. They haven't really gotten to the root of what.
Well, different people will see the problem differently. That's part of the complication, right?
Right, but they need to get all these people together and do some brainstorming.
Okay.
Something.
Anybody else?
They gotta come up with some kind of.
That makes me think of the directive personality that thinks they're going to solve a problem by putting more procedures into effect and rules.
Right.
Right. Well, we have this problem. Let's just create another rule.
Yeah.
Let's unpack it first and see where it is. Now, this is tricky. So we're gonna ask questions like, what's your first action? What do you say in your first public speech? If you're now the new director, you're the, it ended with the last sentence saying what?
Police chief.
You're the new police chief, you just come in,
Yeah.
and how do you fix it, right? Okay, so what should your first action be? What do you say in your first public speech? What actions do you take in the first couple weeks, the first month, the first 3 months, the first year, in order to actually get to, because what we have is a leadership issue. In many ways, we have a leadership issue. It sounds weird that we're talking about what we're talking about here in a business class, but this is a pure leadership issue, okay? So, what's your first action? What do you think?
Well, I guess somewhere in there that stuck out to me was the data that suggested that when they pursued I forget how it's worded, when they were pursuing or actively going after crime, then a lot of the problems went down.
Okay.
Then when they laid back on that, a lot of the problems went up with things like shootings.
Okay, so you didn't answer my question. What's your first action?
Well, the first action that's gonna be related to that where we get officers to start interacting with people in the community.
Let's do it more like this. It's your first day, you're being introduced, just walking in. First action. What do? You've just arrived.
You introduce yourself.
Oh, well, there you go. That's a good start. Now what?
And talk about what the problems are
To whom?
to your audience.
Who's my audience?
The news cameras as well as the people.
My
sitting
first
there.
action, I don't even go to my office at work. I go to the news camera.
Well,
What's my very first action?
Get with your deputies, get with your leadership.
Get with the people that are the other deputies and leadership within the department.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm being introduced, here's my office, I'm being introduced to everyone, and what kind of reassuring thing am I saying? What am I saying?
I think you ask questions.
Yes.
You ask
Very
open-ended
good.
questions.
Okay, like?
just get their opinions.
You had the right answer, you just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, like?
What do we currently do on a daily basis in this department?
Okay, that's a good question. What else?
I guess when you're asking the questions and getting their answers is cueing in on their body language to see what it looks like to you.
Okay.
What's motivating and driving them.
Why do you say that?
Why? Because that might give you an idea of their attitudes towards you or whoever was in your position before.
Now, everybody in that room is gonna know that you're the boss, right?
Right.
And everybody knows that what you say is gonna probably change the way that things go, right? So that seems like it's a pretty good thing to pay attention to.
Yeah.
What else? Other questions?
Yeah. Try to get advice of how they would resolve what, like,
Okay, what are we gonna do to
ideas
fix this problem?
that have been put up before, but they never took action on because of prior leadership.
So you've just been hired to solve this problem, I would imagine,
Yes, sir.
right? You've not been hired just like, hey, we just needed somebody to do it. But like, come in and fix the police department, fix what's going wrong, right? You don't come in and go, hey guys, here's our idea, here's what's gonna happen. Here's how we're gonna get from here to there. You're not gonna set a vision?
I say no.
You say no, you say right. That's good. It was your question.
Yeah.
Okay? Not yet. Why?
Because you want to get all the feedback from your
You
officers.
don't know what everybody's capabilities are yet, do
Exactly.
you?
What are their
How
strengths?
arrogant would it be to come in and go, I'm coming on the white horse,
Yeah.
right? And I'm going to tell you,
Charge.
yeah, right? You gotta get to know people, right?
What are their strengths? What are their
Spot on.
weaknesses?
What else? Quiet side.
You need to know the, like, the.
There we go,
existing
quiet
pro-
side. All right.
the
Not so
existing
quiet.
Processes and everything.
Okay, got to get to know what the processes are, how things actually work. Okay, so that's the first thing. What's your first action? What do you say in your first public speech? This is a different question.
Address there's an issue.
Okay, so you address that there's an issue. We all know that there's an issue.
Yeah.
So to not say anything would be very bad.
Yes.
Okay, we've established that. Good. What else?
Discuss the statistics and likely or correct correlations that go with the statistics and then lead towards what you think the problems are.
Okay, so discuss the statistics And?
Set the groundwork for your vision of the path that you wanna move.
What's your
forward.
vision? I'm asking you to tell me what you say.
The direction and forward,
It's easier to say discuss it than it is to tell me what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
You have a splendid opportunity here in your first public statement to really solidify something, but you need to know what it is you're gonna solidify. What do you do?
We have a problem.
We know that, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Our
It's
team-
good that we're not dodging that.
Yeah.
What else do we say?
yeah.
He's looking for something. What's he looking for?
I guess one of the things in general that should be talked about is our relationship with the community,
Okay?
the members of the community.
What about?
And how we notice this isn't right and this isn't right, discussing all that.
Okay? What else?
We need to work with the community,
Okay?
what path.
Okay? Anything else?
Well, I agree from up there on the slide to share a vision of what I see reducing murder rates in the city, reducing interactions, criminal interactions between police and citizens, and then also call for unity. I would say Black Lives Matter by name. and say
Okay,
that-
so how do you say this? You say, we're gonna work together with Black Lives Matter to reduce the number of murders in the city.
Yeah.
Yes?
Like,
Don't let me put words in your mouth.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
That's what you will say.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, anybody else gonna say something different?
I'd have
Well, I guess that's one way of going about, but then I
That
see
is.
the other new problems that it might create,
Which are?
which are ideological, based on people that don't care about Black Lives Matter.
Okay. Like who?
I guess I'm kind of ignorant in saying this, but perhaps white people that.
They might not be.
Republican.
Maybe they're not even tuned in. Black Lives Matter sure is. Right? What else?
A lot of people's brains just shut off when they start hearing that.
Okay. What else? Anybody else? Quiet side, what are you gonna say? I shouldn't have dubbed you quiet side, because now you're trying to live up to that reputation. What are you gonna say? It's your first speech. You're part of quiet side, by the way.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Figured.
I just try not to make eye contact.
So I watched the 60 Minutes episode last night,
Mm-hmm.
and ironically enough, it was on the violence
Don't,
gun violence
same city or a different city?
in Chicago.
Okay, good. Okay. And?
So yes, say it or no say it.
Well, so don't say what you know that's happening.
So do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, man.
So you stay quiet.
Okay.
Okay? You two talk.
You're on the quiet
I know, I mean,
side.
I know in Chicago, the crime rate's gone down for 2017.
Yeah, okay, but that's not the point. We don't
Yeah.
know that officially when we're,
Yeah.
with what we've read.
I'd wanna work with the people, not just like. it's
So
just
what do you
like-
say in that first speech? He's at least told us, he's gonna say we're gonna bring the murder rate down, we're gonna work with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Yes? Is that fair?
That's correct.
Yes?
You're gonna, you know, I'd say we're gonna work with my staff or my team or whatever terminology police use, and we're gonna get behind, you know, all the details and all these statistics and work with the various groups within the community and get out amongst the people and hear from them and try to see what we can do to establish a better relationship in the community with, you know, with the Black Lives Matter, with whatever.
Who's gonna be happy about, let's take his, who's gonna be happy about his stance?
People that are strong in the Black Lives
I'm
Matter.
not gonna be bothered by it, because I know it's an attempt to do good.
Okay.
But what bothers me is the others that are bothered. by
Okay,
it.
who's gonna like it and who's gonna be bothered by it?
Black Lives Matter, I think, would like it.
I think they would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Who's gonna be bothered by it?
the people
That
that
oppose it,
don't,
that see it as a negative.
yeah.
Okay? So there are some citizens, and who else, may very well be bothered by it.
Oh, cops.
We gotta be real careful at how that's said.
Cops are going to be very.
They may very well be, because very often
They
feel
stated
like,
on- They stated on the news.
wait a minute, so what you're telling me is that I'm in harm's way and what?
Yeah.
And they may very well.
And the other problem with it is it might further embolden some of the wrong people that are all about Black Lives Matter and make it even more dangerous for law enforcement.
Okay, so let's stop there for a second. I applaud him for taking a stand, but your stand might have some repercussions, just like a different stand. We're just gonna be law and order, right? Is gonna have very different repercussions,
Yep.
right?
New problems.
Dude, now your police are gonna love it, and the community's gonna hate it, and I think on either side you might have issues, but we'll have to work that out. First 2 weeks, what actions you take?
Going along with the relationship with the community and the statistics that have correlated active involvement with pursuing crime, that would lead you into the part of the speech where we're gonna be working hard on the streets to improve our relationships with the community.
Okay, so in the first 2 weeks, how are you gonna do that? Don't tell me in generalities, tell me specifically what you're gonna do.
Specific.
2 weeks, what are you gonna do over that first 2 weeks?
Maybe not reports, but training of my officers and the public.
You're gonna train in the first 2 weeks?
I still say you're gonna meet with your staff and you're gonna, like we talked about earlier, you're gonna find out who you have working for you and what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, to find out what they think about the crime rate and everything else that's been going on. Are they part of the problem?
Training's not a bad idea, but is that the first 2
not in the
weeks,
first 2
or
weeks.
is that 3 months in? Or a month in? Do you understand?
Yes, sir. I mean, I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
even your staff, your people you wanna,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Anybody wanna argue that you shouldn't be getting to know your people first?
yeah.
That's the first thing.
Okay, everybody
Within the first 2
everybody
weeks.
copacetic with that? Yep.
Yeah, I
Okay,
agree.
first month in, what are you gonna do?
Well, I would also, probably within the first 2 weeks, meet with.
Get out there! I mean, if you're not getting out into the community, you have to meet your staff, you have to get to know them, but you also have to get to know the other side, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so somewhere within the first 2 weeks, month, you need to do both of those factors. Are we okay with that?
Yep.
Good, okay. Now, 3 months in, what needs to start happening?
I'm thinking the hiring of people to be within your department that are specifically for engaging people.
Okay, for more
Engaging.
community policing, okay? That sound good? Anybody else have any other ideas?
And that'll be a big part in helping to find out what's going on
Uh-huh,
where you otherwise wouldn't.
uh-huh. Okay,
You may also wanna start I don't know if 3 months is enough time, and maybe it is. I'm not a police officer, so I wouldn't know, but maybe it'd be time to start getting rid of some people too. at the
well,
same time.
so you may very well be sending a message with whatever your first statement is. Whether this is gonna be a conducive place for you, whether you're a good or not so good policeman, right? I mean, what you're saying, that's why that first meeting is important, and you only gave me his answer for it. Nobody else was saying, hey, look, I'm gonna make sure that if you're doing your job and you're a good cop, you're safe. I will take care of that. But if you do anything that you know is illegal, don't expect anybody who's in blue to come to your aid.
Set your boundaries.
That's called crime. Don't do it. Nobody said that. Would that resonate with most of the cops?
As long as it's understood in clear terms.
With what I just said, would that resonate with the police?
Yep,
Would that resonate with much of the community?
yep,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, right, because I'm saying both sides of that. I'm not, it doesn't look like I'm trying to tilt the favor of, hey, I'm gonna look the other way on you, right? Because that's a big part of what's really irritating the community, yeah?
That's the clear part, as long as it's clearly outlined that it's people in the organization involved in criminal acts or illegal activities.
6 months in, what needs to happen?
Need to be taking action. on
Yeah, there needs to be some kind of measurable action starting, right?
By then, you kinda know what you need to do to train on, like you said earlier. If you need some kind of training on something, maybe they need, I don't know, what do you call it, counseling skills. They need to learn better skills to talk to people.
Sure,
You know,
there needs to
they
be,
can
something
be
needs to be
great-
happening along
great
those lines.
cops and shoot everything, but maybe they don't have people skills.
Okay?
Maybe they need to be improved, so they can get some training for that.
Sir?
That's where I was kinda gonna go, is by then you should really have a better idea on what you need to be hiring for.
Okay.
Not just physical ability, but personality wise, when it comes to people skills.
That's fair. Maybe that's the problem, but we don't know that yet. We just walked in the door, we don't
We'll
know.
figure it
So
out.
within a few
Yeah.
months, we should be able to figure out if that's actually the problem or not,
Yes.
right? Okay, a year from now?
Everyone should be seeing that what you said is truth.
Yes, everybody sees that you did what you said you're gonna do,
Yes.
right? That's number one. And we should also see as a consequence of that,
Yeah, crime
Yeah.
should be
crime should be going down.
Murder should be going down.
Right, okay. So, we said this isn't easy, it's very complicated. We're gonna play a little complication game. So we're gonna role play for a little bit because there are essentially 4 major constituents, okay? There are city councilmen standing for re-election, that's you. There's the members of the Chicago Police Department, that's you. There's members of the community where the crime has happened, that's you and you. And there's Black Lives Matter protesters, that's you and you. Okay? You live in a community, you're not a BLM protester,
Okay.
okay? You're the dad of a kid who's been killed, but you're not a BLM protester. You two are BLM protesters. Got it? You're worried because you just brought this guy in and you're up for re-election next year. Okay? And you're the cops. Okay? Now let's go back to this first thing. This first action comes in and says what? Gets to know his people, right? How's that going to resonate? Now, you can't see that yet. You can't see that yet. You can see it. What do you think? Is that good? Did that work well?
Yes.
I mean, is that the first thing he should have done?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. And you're just kind of nervous on the sideline, okay, as the city council. His first public speech, he says what? Let's use his for one. I'm going to work with Black Lives Matter to reduce the murder rate. We all want to reduce the murder rate, right? I mean, anybody here like pro murder rate? Raise your hand. No? Okay. Everybody wants to reduce the murder rate, but he says that. How you feeling, city councilman?
Well, I may not agree, but I'm still gonna.
But it depends on which city council precinct you're over, right? So you might be schizophrenic here.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna stand behind my people, though.
No, what I'm saying is seriously, it depends on which district you represent. You might think that's the
Yeah.
greatest thing, or that's a very bad thing.
Oh, yeah.
Depends on what-
Because of the way the voters will vote.
Okay? How you feeling, BLM?
Murder rate's going down, that's
Awesome.
good.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're saying
Yeah, it's
we're
good.
gonna do. BLM, we're gonna work together, neighborhood, community.
Why isn't he talking to us? Why aren't we part
Well,
of the
that's interesting.
solution? Why aren't the people that it's infecting the most?
That's interesting, because your kid was just killed 3 weeks ago.
And I'm still upset, and it doesn't solve my problem.
That's true. It doesn't necessarily solve your problem because, I mean, this is a lifelong problem, right? And now you want to see probably justice in this thing being resolved so that it doesn't work, but it wasn't, your kids weren't killed by cops. I mean, that's a very small percentage. Your kids were killed by localized crime, right?
Yep.
So that's very different than, that you have a very different perspective than you have, right? Policeman, how do you like that message?
I'm like, well, it's okay to, support Black Lives Matter, but what about the blue lives? What about us?
Okay.
I mean, I'm thinking that maybe we're not as well represented as we thought.
Are you metaphorically crossing your arms and going, oh, okay, if that's what he wants to do. I'm gonna do, like you saw in the thing, I'm gonna do the minimum,
Yeah.
and not do anything else.
Right, it's not that I have a little talk with him offline or something.
What
Say,
should
hey,
he say? Should he say that? From your various perspectives.
I don't think he should say that to me.
So in his first public statement, how do you get that? Because you're talking to various audiences simultaneously. He may very well want to work with Black Lives Matter to figure out what on earth can you bring to this that will help us understand this. That's okay. But is that his first statement?
Maybe you should equalize.
Perhaps he could talk about that, but also talk about every different group's perspective.
Well, so you've got a danger there,
Yeah,
right? Remember Trump putting his foot in his mouth after Charlottesville? When somebody just got murdered,
Yeah.
not a good time to say both sides.
Yeah, both sides are
right?
Good
That,
people, yeah.
that was just tone deaf, okay? Not a good time, okay? So if we're not gonna do that, what are we gonna do?
Well, it helps us feel like we have a voice.
It does help you feel like you have a voice, that's true. You guys are very happy about this, but is there a better approach?
Well, the only thing I can think of is either address that and address everybody's, or just address the general picture.
Okay? Anybody else?
Otherwise, you're gonna,
How do you not tick off the cops in the process? Because you want the good cops to be behind you, right? And if you're a slimy cop, you might want to be like afraid. You know, I mean, let's be honest. We don't necessarily want more of that. Not necessarily. We don't want more of that, right? So we're going to want to send a message that signals to them this isn't a welcome place for you to do that. Good cops that are just trying to do their job and get home to their families, we want you to know you're supported, right? But that's not the message, so how do we say that? This is a question and answer kind of format at work.
kind of like what we were talking about earlier, it's being very specific about specifying anybody that is engaging in any illegal activities or acts within this organization is going to be dealt with, which includes termination, disciplinary, whatever.
So you can theoretically say what he said, but you'd have to add other stuff too in order to communicate that. Well, can you add anything to take yourself out of your role for a second? Can you add anything to what you had said? Because there's not really, it's not necessarily bad to say what you said, but if it's in the larger context. By itself, you at least isolated the police. So what else can you add to it? Remember, we got to think in terms of all constituents. And the crime rate will go down, or the murder rate will drop by, at least 25% this time next year, and that'll be music to the city councilman's ears, right? I'm getting reelected. Look at what I did. You didn't really do anything. You just hired the guy, right? So that's the end goal that we all want. They're happy, you're not, and he's not. Right? So what else could be added to that? And it's not an easy answer.
Yeah, I like saying reduce the murder rate because that's a quantitative thing to say, and everyone likes it. But somehow saying improve the relationship between the police officers and the communities.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow. Say
okay,
that.
we all kind of want that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, nobody's pro. Let's agitate these sides against each other. Okay. What else?
I think there's a race barrier there that needs to be addressed because 72% of the people that are being frisked down or whatever stopped are African American or whatever, which I think that needs to be addressed. But hey, we're gonna start treating everyone fairly,
Okay, and so even that has a different perspective though.
Yeah.
You're looking at this from the community saying, look, why are we being unnecessarily targeted? You're looking at this going, I'm just where the crime is.
Right.
And so, right? And you guys are definitely on the side of, hey, that's going to be some racist stuff, right? Or that's going to be unfair, or the police targeting, right? So we have to understand that we're saying the same words and we're not speaking the same language, right? So how do we address that? It's tough.
Yeah.
So this guy came in, and what do you want from a leader? Well, I'm just asking a whole different question. What do you want from a leader? You want to know, you want one thing most from the person that is responsible for you. What?
Direction.
Direction? Is that it? So I'm going to give you direction, but I'm going to slit your throat when it becomes easy for me to slit your throat, or it becomes efficient for me to do that?
Negative.
No? So you don't want direction more than anything else?
No.
Honesty and integrity.
Honesty? I'm sorry that I have to slit your throat now, right? But I have to be I have to have integrity and do it for everybody that, you know, would be in your circumstances. Is that what you want from your leader?
Of course not.
So what do you want? I'm being honest here. That's not what I want from my leader. What do you want?
I bet you're gonna be honest, so.
Oh yeah, I'd like you to be honest too. I mean, those are high values. Honesty, that's up there. I want to know that there's direction. That's true. What else? At the end of the day, what do you want most?
I want competency.
You just competency? That's the highest value.
One of the-
So you're expendable. I am competent to know that I just wrote you out of our company. Goodbye.
There's a whole lot of.
I hope you get a new job somewhere else.
You failed the personality test. Bye-bye.
There's not just one.
Sound
or two,
good?
There's not just one or two things you want to lead.
No,
who
what's on
has-
top of the list? I want to know absolutely the most important thing to you.
Self-made.
Self-made? Wow, you did it all by yourself. That's great. Now you're fired, right?
No.
No, that's not it.
What's he looking
Unselfishness.
for? He's looking for something. I just don't know what.
That's why I am looking for something.
I know. Just
Unselfishness.
Unselfishness?
how about a team player?
Team player? That we're getting there.
Service.
Yeah, we want a servant leader.
Servant leader?
That's-
Okay.
Yeah. There we go.
That's good. That's not the buzzword I'm looking for.
Oh.
And I'm not looking for a buzzword. I want to know a concept here. Go ahead.
Compassion.
Compassion? Ooh, we're getting closer. And both the community and the police officers want this from the chief of police.
Empathy.
Empathy? That's not what I'm looking for. You just thought you had it. But that's not just what I'm looking for. I tell you, do you want me to tell you what I want from my leader?
Yes.
I want to know that at the end of the day you have my back. If I screwed up legitimately, that you're going to take care of me, right? And you know, it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You're not going to just kick me to the curb.
Slit my throat.
I'm happy for you to be less than competent if I know that you'll take care of me, right? Because I need that certain psychological safety. If I'm the community, so if I'm the cops, I need that.
That's what I
And your
would-
message with Black Lives Matter ain't gonna get them there. Okay, it's complicated. You can say that, but you got to say more than that. Okay. Now, if I'm the community, what do I want? I want to be safe. Same thing. I want to be safe.
Yep.
That's right.
Right? And I want to make sure that the police chief does it for me. And I want to be safe from what looks like discrimination, from the statistical analysis, from all the things that happen, right? Safety, safety, safety. And I want to get reelected. Safety. Right? I want to know that you have my back.
Protection.
Protection, safety, right? So if I'm asking you to follow me as a leader, I'm asking you to go with me here. And I'm kind of telling you it's going to be okay. Where are we going? See this place that we're going to? We're going here. You haven't gone here before, but I'm leading you. Let's go, and it'll be okay. I'm not saying I'm leading you, you know, if I lose you, oh well. Right? I'm not saying that. Do you understand where I'm going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that has to be a component. Maybe that's not the most important component. Maybe efficiency is more important to you. That's okay. That's you, not me. I actually want to know that, you know, you're going to do what you said, true, honest, true, competent, true. All those things are great, but I want to know that you have my back. And we need to send that message to both the police and to the community and even to the people that are outside agitating. Because they have rightful grievances, regardless of what their perspective is, whether you agree with them, don't agree with them. They have legitimate grievances, right?
Yep.
I mean, the guy that caused the Chicago thing, shot 16 times, like, yeah, right? I mean, that's a legitimate grievance that should get you upset. If you're not upset by that, something went wrong.
Yeah.
Okay? City councilman, I don't feel bad for you because you're a politician, so forget it. Okay? But everybody else, with everybody else, I mean, that's what you want in leadership, right? Okay, what else do you want to pull out of this? Any other ahas came to this? Came to you through the exercise? It's not easy.
One thing that jumped out there is the part where somebody got shot in the back, walking away or running away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When there are so many other less lethal or non-lethal ways.
Yeah, and so maybe that'll come out as part of the training. Here are not more non-lethal ways of approaching that or whatever. And so we can work that in, but we've got to communicate. What we need to do, one, is come in and say, look, I'm here. You know, I said this in a different class. I said this would be a great way for the police commissioner or whatever his name is to introduce himself. Would be, look, if you're doing your job and you're sincerely doing your job, I will be fired before you're fired. Okay? If you're a crook, I will personally make sure that you go to jail. Now, what would that do to you? You're honest police, right? Now, there's a few of you. You got to be a little civil, like a little schizophrenic here too, because you're representing a number. There's some of you that are going to be like, maybe that job in the suburbs is the way to go, or getting out of this business entirely, or whatever, right? There are a few of you that are going to do that. But what's that going to do for the main body of you?
It's going to be like, this man means business.
Yeah.
That's good. Let's get
Well,
rid
what
of
if you put
it.
yourself out there? Now, that is that somebody said example and servant leadership and empathy and that kind of, right? That's all part of that same kind of concept. What's that do for you in the community? Now, if your address is to the police, now remember, you're talking to multiple audiences when you're talking to the public, right?
Right.
So, we're laughing at Donald Trump's tweets to Kim Jong-il, or whatever his name is. We're laughing at that, but he said he's not tweeting for the American media, right? He's sending, he knows he's talking to different audiences, okay? Not the same thing, very different, but just as an example. What's that do to you in the community to hear what I just said? If you're doing your job, I'll be fired before you are, right? If you are a crook, I'm going to make sure you go to jail.
Yeah. It reassures me that
You like that?
less kids will be killed.
Yeah, you like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Black Lives Matter, how's that sit with you? I mean, it might not be everything you wanted, but
Step in the right direction.
I can hold him to that promise of, I'm going to make sure he goes to jail. Now I got something to hang my hat on because he said it.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that fair? Yeah, okay.
This could solve other problems too, like different members of the community's reluctance to come forward and report who was part of or responsible for a crime because they begin to feel.
Now, he's got to do it. He's got to find crooks and put them in the slammer.
Yep.
If he doesn't, he loses all credibility.
Yeah.
But
Right?
but if he does that, that could help out big time in the effort of identifying ways to solve crimes.
Okay? Yeah, anything else? So, now what's interesting is what you were just talking about. You watched this thing on 60 Minutes, and so what happened last year in Chicago?
Well, the murder rates went down.
Mhm.
They implemented this computer program,
771 to 650 last year.
650.
So that's a pretty marked decline, right? I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, that's 660 too many, but nonetheless, that's still a lot better than where it was, okay?
Yeah, so like 120 something lives were saved essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And they implemented this computer program that essentially predicts who will be shot and who will shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So that police can go out and prevent it from happening before they.
Do you know New York City did this a number of years ago with CompStat? So CompStat was a computer. CompStat was accountability, right? So Giuliani would. Giuliani's a mixed bag, right? We think highly of him because he showed up on 9/11 and he did a good job showing up and doing what? What's the thing that we want most?
Leadership.
Am I safe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And he showed up and he was there and he was, tired because he got 2 hours of sleep the night before and then 2 hours of sleep the day before that, and he was still there, out there being present and directing things. So there was a wag that was talking about how, he was the philandering, no good mayor of New York until 9/11, where he became America's mayor, right? I mean, 9/11 really made him. But one of the things that he did along the way, and he didn't do a whole lot in New York in some regards, but in crime, he did a good job with CompStat. Now, CompStat was, he took the city, divided it into grids, and then he held his police chiefs responsible for their sections of that grid. And if something kept going on, well, why are we putting more resources over there? Well, why aren't we moving resources from here to there if that's where the crime is? And the crime rate fell dramatically. Now, there are some other issues with New York City with that, so I'm not going to say it's a broad blanket, but that was one of the, so he was holding his people accountable. But he was also raising up the flag and saying, this is what we're going to do. What's interesting is what happened in 2017. How's Baltimore doing?
A lot worse.
A lot worse. What's going on? Any ideas? Chicago is going the right direction. Baltimore's not.
Baltimore's allowing people to get away with certain,
What happened in Baltimore a couple of years ago?
the shooting of,
Nope, not shooting.
I don't know what happened in Baltimore.
Huh?
I can't remember what happened myself.
You don't remember the guy that was in the back of the police vehicle?
he died,
Oh, is that the one that,
cause he wasn't seatbelt in.
And after that, there were days and days of riots,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
police told the cops to back, or the mayor's office told the cops to back off, let them do whatever.
Freddie Gray.
That's-
Right?
Yeah, Freddie
And then
Gray,
the
that's
police are
one, yeah.
charged for that. The district attorney was saying, we're gonna, make sure that they pay for this crime, and, the police were charged, and they were found by juries not guilty in Baltimore, right? Okay, if you were a policeman, is it somewhat similar to what you would have experienced in Chicago, or what you've read here?
Quite
Right.
demoralizing.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that's somewhat demoralizing, but here's Baltimore.
Lamar Chambers, 22.
A somber and sobering way to mark the new year, and this is their 3rd year in a row.
Philip Bradford, 57. Michael Wines Jr., 25.
Members and supporters of the group Mothers of Murdered Sons and Daughters gathered to speak their names and remember the lives of Baltimore City's 343 homicide victims in 2017. Daphne Alston said of all the years,
This is hard. I've been doing this. It's just, I don't, this is too much.
with 300
Too much, 343 murdered in Baltimore. To put that in perspective, Baltimore is less than a quarter the size of Chicago.
Whoa. Wow, that's a lot.
So that's, on a per capita basis, gonna be like 12, 13, something in that neighborhood?
Mhm.
Somebody, you're an accountant, right? Something in that neighborhood, right? I mean, that's crazy. Why? What's going on?
143 homicides, 2017 adds up to Baltimore's 2nd deadliest on record and breaks down to a murder rate of 55.8 per 100,000 people. Last year's count surpassed only by the year 1993 when homicides hit the record high of 353. But that year's murder rate, 48 per 100,000 people, since, according to U.S. Census data, Baltimore City had some 121,000 more residents back then.
These names that we read should be children that are graduating from high school. These names that we read should be children that are graduating from college.
Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh ended the old year and started this new one with a promise to change the tide by hiring more police officers, boosting technology, and investing in education.
All of these actions and many others are making a positive, measurable difference. The results, I realize, don't happen quick enough, but you can be assured that they will happen.
Stop. Her message, with what the news commentator said, was it on the right track?
Yeah.
She's got to.
Was she speaking to your audience? Sure. Your audience? Sure, we're gonna hire new cops and we're gonna do better technology. Your audience? Your audience? Enough, right? She was at least trying. I mean, this was a lot better than what you saw just after that, that guy, I'm trying to remember his name, that died in the back of the police vehicle. Freddie Gray, right? A lot better than the message that was coming out right then.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, she's hitting the right kinds of chords. Look, so I'm showing you this for a reason, okay? Here's, some commentators are talking about the Ferguson effect with that, and that's what you saw or what you experienced in Chicago with that. Baltimore residents blame record high murder rate on lower police presence. The community is not liking that.
What we saw in here.
Right? Okay, Baltimore agrees. Why? Baltimore agreed to a broad change for troubled police department. Look at the date, January 12th, 2017. Okay? Why does this matter? I mean, it's almost like Baltimore is finding out the hard way and having to replicate what Chicago did, which unfortunately is painful because people's lives are legitimately at stake, right?
Can't get those lives back.
And I'm not saying, oh, we just need more cops, or we just need more, or police, BLM, or whatever. It's far more complicated than any of those pat answers. But we need to send a clear message, one. We need to send a message that we care, we protect you, and not just I care, right? Clinton was, I feel your pain, right? Okay? It's not just that. I want to know that you're going to do something to protect me, whether I'm the cops or whether I'm the community, right? Leadership is messing with people's lives. Now, there's a harder, not much of a better way to pronounce this than to deal with what we just dealt with, because that's legitimately life and death. I don't know where you work, but most of you don't work in a place where it's legitimately life and death, I would imagine, right? Like I get red ink on my pants sometimes, and I get paper cuts. Like that's the greatest threat to me. Okay? It's not life and death. But what I do know is that by doing what we're doing, by you leaving from this place, being better leaders, you're going to have a ripple effect of positive effect on people's lives. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. Okay? And it may very well be for some of you somewhere down the line in that ripple effect, life and death, but leadership has an impact on people's lives. This is a course where bad leadership goes to die. Okay, so this is the only course where I give you a give it back guarantee. If you don't like what you've gotten out of here, did I do this before? Okay, this course will fundamentally change the way that you think about leadership. If it does not, you can assign me, your professor, reading. I will read any book on leadership that you think is better. I will take notes. I will provide you an oral report. Now, in the small print, it says any book on leadership that you have read on leadership. You can't just like randomly go, I think I'm going to make them, whatever. The book has to be about leadership, not a textbook or an unrelated book. Like, you know, here's the auto manual from 2013 on Toyota parts. I'm not reading that. Okay? To qualify, you also must complete this class. All classes have no incomplete assignments, and you must have read the required readings yourself. You can't just stick that on me if you haven't done the work. Okay, I didn't learn anything. Well, you didn't do the readings. Okay. But if you do, and you get to the end of this course, and you feel like, well, yeah, I don't really learn, or whatever, you can assign it. Okay? And I will do that. I'm telling you this publicly in front of everybody, so it's hard to go back on that. Okay. So we're going to review the syllabus, introduce ourselves quickly, and then we're going to get into Woodrow Wilson, Peter Drucker, and Tom Peters, and just talk about some general concepts about big picture kind of concepts about leadership. So let me go over to the syllabus. Here's the syllabus. You can read the course description and rationale on your own, but this is the first significant. In fact, you know, I was telling somebody earlier, I wrote a book in a different class, right? But I like the material in this class more than that. Okay? This will fundamentally alter the way that you think about leadership. Oh, by the way, part of that fine print was that this doesn't count if you've taken my other classes and now you're, well, it didn't fundamentally change me. Well, that's because you've already had my other classes. So, but this is one of the first classes that you should be experiencing along the way in leadership. Okay, so your books. I require the publication manual, the APA publication manual in every class. I also require Strunk and White, the elements of style, in every class. Beyond that, you're going to read Leadership and Self-Deception, Getting Out of the Box. You're going to read A Tale of Three Kings, A Study in Brokenness. You're going to read the Servant Leadership Training course. Now, not when I say read, you're not actually reading. You're listening to it on audio. It doesn't come in a print form. It's only audio. And, you know, honestly, that's just really refreshing material. Listen to it a few times. Just marinate in it. So that's James Hunter. Kouzes and Posner, The Leadership Challenge, and The Steward Leader by Rodin, and that rounds it out. There are a few articles here as well that are required that are posted on Blackboard. You can read the learning outcomes, faith integration, those kind of things on your own. Let me go down to course requirements and assignments. So you're going to, before you get to class, now this might be an exception if you just registered or whatever today. Okay, so today we're going to just kind of, okay, you get a pass if you hadn't read something. Before you come to the next class, please read everything. Read and get your journal. I'll talk about the journal in just a little bit. Make sure you answer the questions before this class, even though it's not due till the following week to submit, because you might refine some things in class, but work through it, think through it. Do that for me. I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours putting this material together. Be kind to me and respectful to that, and do your side of the equation as well. The more you put in, the more you're going to get out of the class, okay? So assigned readings, read. Class participation. So in this class, the way that this will work is it's 25. So 25, 250, 15. 15% of the total points in this class will come out of simply showing up, showing me that you have read the assignments, and talking with me in class about it. Okay, so the way that that works is there are 7 sessions, 7 residential sessions, and in those 7 sessions, you can skip one with impunity. Okay, and it won't hurt you. After that, you'll lose 25 points, 25 points. If you skip like more than that, you're starting getting in the danger of WFing, withdrawal failing, but it's for attendance. Okay, class participation is weighted for that reason that way. Discussion boards. So you're going to have LDBs, leadership discussion boards, and there are different topics. So the first one, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. What is leadership? So what is leadership? And you're going to go out into our CSU online journal databases, and you're going to just look up what is leadership. Stay away from, okay, so you want to click peer review, and God bless you. You want to click peer review and academic when you're identifying these. So you want to find that from there. You want to also make sure that you're looking at not just scholarly journals, but scholarly journals that are relative to you. So if you're in business, and if your background is business, if it's accounting, that's fine. If it's from an accounting journal, that's okay. But not nursing. Okay, the Journal of Nursing or the Journal of Pediatrics, something or another, don't leave those alone. Okay, you should also draw whatever your quote is, because you're just trying to find a few quotes about what is leadership. That's all I'm asking you to do. Quote it, cite it, reference it appropriately in APA. Okay, so do those things and just put that out there. Make sure it's correct in APA format, because I'm trying to, this is kind of a gateway drug to get you more used to what you're going to be doing in other classes as you're writing larger papers. Okay, so when I'm asking you what is leadership, I don't want you to go to the abstract and not read the article and go, from the abstract it says whatever. No, read through. At least read the discussion and the conclusion at the end of the article. That's where you should be drawing from when you pull from these papers, not from the literature review. If it's from page 1 of your article, I'm probably going to mark it down, because you're drawing from the literature review or the abstract or something along those lines. You're not really reading from the meat of the article. Yes?
You don't mind if I go blow my nose, do you?
No, I don't mind that at all. In fact, I prefer it if you need to.
Thank you.
Okay, expanding on servant leadership and steward leadership. So you're going to tell me more about what you've learned in this time. And by the time we get to this discussion board, you're going to have some context for it. You're going to go find more about it. And then the third one is, what is Christian about Christian leadership? What is distinctly Christian that is not just, so a lot of leadership actually flows very nicely with Christianity, very simply, right? And then there's some that is distinctive to Christians only. And I want you to identify what that is and tell me about it in the third discussion board. Okay, team leader biography documentary. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to select as a team, and I would have had teams, but you only have so many people, so you're a team. Okay, as a team, you're going to select a leader of your choice. I don't care who it is within some reason. This person should be fairly well known, so you can find a number of sources. But you're going to create a online like Ken Burns kind of style documentary film about this person that's going to last 10 to 15 minutes. Okay? So you have to make sure that you're using sources that are legitimate. So somebody who's been out in the public domain would work probably a whole lot easier than somebody that you have to steal pictures from somehow. And you're going to tell me about not just about their background, but about why they're a leader, what makes them a leader, what they exemplify or have said, or whatever else. You're going to do this and not have busy 607, the leader documentary. You're not going to do that. I should be able to show this to somebody who has never seen it before, and they think, wow, that's professional. If they don't think it's professional, if they think it's a bunch of students, you fail. You don't really fail, but you don't do well. Okay? Do you understand? So part of the assignment is what you learn about the leader. Part of the assignment is how you interact with each other in order to organize yourselves in such a way as to manage this process and make a quality documentary about whoever the leader is of your choice. Make sense? Okay. All right, so team leadership evaluation. At the end of the semester, you'll get to evaluate each other for their leadership ability. Now, in one class, I had somebody that rated a 6 out of 100 points. 6 out of 100 points. And that's what his grade was for that. I let that stand. Frankly, for my money, that was too high. Okay? Because the guy was a slug. He didn't do anything all semester, and he made his team do all his work. And so he was benefiting from their labor. If you do that, your team will be able to mark you down at the end of the semester appropriately. And they should, because part of this is truth-telling, right? Leadership journal. So you have a leadership journal, and you're going to answer these questions on these assigned days, but make sure that it's done before class so that you have it in front of us. And if you have done the reading, we're working toward getting it done. Yes?
The journal?
Yes.
Is that like a
it's just it is just a Word document that I sent out that has a number of questions directed from the reading. So I posted it on Blackboard today.
We'll resubmit it?
Yeah, and so you'll resubmit it at the very end. You can hand it to me because we're in class, or you can post it when you're supposed to. That's fine. Okay? But it's just answering questions and it's trying to prime the pump to make you think. That's all it is. Okay? It's not open-ended free form, but it is somewhat subjective. There are some questions that are very correct based on the book, and some are just like, hey, how does this affect my life? Okay? Quizzes, this semester each individual will take 4 quizzes. In this class, I think I do it differently in the online section, but you'll have 4 quizzes, and then you'll have your exams. You have 3 exams over the course of the semester, and then a cumulative final exam that's 200 points. Look, please, at the grading scale very carefully, because this morning somebody emailed me and asked me about their grade. Said, Dr. Otis, I got 800. I should have a B in this class, but I got a message that said I have a C. Why was he wrong?
Because he was under 81.99%, therefore it's a C.
Yes, so anything 70 to 81. So the way that this works is that if you want an A, you're in the top 8 points. Okay? If you want a B plus or a B, you're in the next 10 points. It gets a little broader. If you want a C, you're in the next 12 points. Okay? So the dumber you are, the more generous I become. Okay? But if you want an A, you really have to work for that, and you get it. You'll do fine. I mean, a lot of students do well. Not a problem. But again, an 80% is a C. Okay? Up through an 82 or 81.9999999, and I don't round. Okay? You're already on a 1,000-point scale. What's the point of rounding there? Okay? So, do you understand the grading scale?
Yep.
Yes? I just want to make sure so we don't have this kind of thing happen again. We will, but I'm trying to minimize it. Statement on academic integrity. See those paragraphs there? All that says simply don't cheat. It's that simple. Don't cheat. Okay? Do your own work. I've never seen anybody that's ever plagiarized by doing their own work. If they actually follow the rules, nobody writes the same paragraph. Well, I wrote that same paragraph that was out. No. You write differently. It's okay. As long as you do your work, that won't happen. Put in quotes if you're borrowing, cite if you're referring to whatever, and don't use more than 3 words in succession of anything that's been said. But if you put it in your own words, you'll be fine. Okay, non-discrimination policy, we don't discriminate. It's pretty easy. And if you see that, you can refer things to the Title IX coordinator. Okay, attendance policies, you need to be here. Please be courteous and be on time because we are, other people are going to be disrupted. Technology policy, this is fun. Cell phones are not to be used in class. If they are out in class, what will happen is you will get a 0 for the class. But I am gracious, so if you do find yourself in that situation and you do fool with your cell phone and you do get the 0, if you bring cookies to the next class, you can buy your way out and we can all eat cookies. I like Nutter Butter, but you can bring what you like. Okay. And then when we get to the readings and assignments and points, it follows a pretty simple flow. So tonight we're going to talk about Wilson, Drucker, and Peters, and then we'll, on Wednesday, you'll complete your leadership discussion board. What is leadership? And you'll find 3 scholarly articles and post them out there. Okay? By Saturday then, you will complete your leadership discussion board 1. You'll interact with 2 of your classmates and talk about it. Now, that's not just, hey, I like your post. No, what can you add from your perspective of what you learned in these journal articles? You're going to have to add, improve. Improving could be as much as just correcting APA format, but if you're not improving or helping or adding to the discussion, you're not really going to get those points. Does that make sense? It's not just, good job.
Active involvement.
Okay. Active involvement, yes. Okay, next week we'll start reviewing. Next week we're not going to be here. This is online. So if you see white, we're here. If you see gray, it's online. So next week, I want you to start reviewing the Servant Leadership Training course. You'll complete LDP1. That's a final paper. That is a team paper that will be 1 literature review based on what your findings have been. By the way, if you don't correct somebody in LDBR1, if you don't correct people and they have a quote that really doesn't make sense or is not right or is right, it's going to hurt your team paper later on. So yeah, maybe you need to go find a new, better quote here because this really didn't answer the question, what is leadership?
Oh.
Sir?
Just to make sure I'm clear on the LDB1, we go look at 3 articles and we write a 1-page document and we post that document.
I mean, you can put it in bullet
discussion.
points. It's not prose. You're just showing me the quotes of what you found and what leadership is. Anything that will help you understand the phenomenon of leadership.
And then by Saturday, everybody should have already posted that document.
Correct.
So I go in and
So you interact with everybody.
and I go provide
And you'll help,
feedback or
yes.
whatever with 2 others
Yes.
that are posted. Okay.
Right? Yes, your
That
question?
makes sense?
Well,
Making sure.
maybe just, so we go in and post our own
Mhm.
documents by, I forget, Saturday,
Wednesday.
I believe,
By Wednesday?
this Wednesday.
Correct.
I guess I'm talking about that. I don't think it's on the screen anymore. Down a little lower.
Okay? And then for the paper part,
Yeah, that paper.
it becomes 1 final literature review of not more than 900 words. That's 3 typewritten pages.
And that's
Telling me
that's
what you
everybody.
found about leadership. Here's what we discovered leadership is according to our research. It is
as a
this,
group,
and it's that,
as a
and it's
team.
this, and the other. That's it. And you cite it correctly, and you reference it correctly.
So like,
That's
there's just 1 submission? Or,
Yep.
I mean,
That's a 1 team submission.
so we just have
So
to
you have to figure out who's going to do what and how you're going to get it done, and somebody's got to kind of take up the mantle, at least for the first one, of I'm going to be in charge of this and help you work things out. So part of what you want to do is make sure that you can contact each other. By the way, this is the easy one. In 610, it's a lot harder, just for whatever that's worth. I make it a larger project. And this one, yeah. Okay, I see a smile over here from somebody who's been there and done that. Okay, so
610.
yeah, so you want to get together, coordinate, and get
But
those
it's
kinds of
posted
things.
on that same type of blog space where
That's
we all
correct.
can see it
On
and make sure it's
Blackboard.
done.
That's
If
correct.
It's not, all right.
Yes. So by week 3, then you'll actually complete your review of the Servant Leadership Training course before you get to class, because that's all we're going to be talking about next week, or next time we meet together. Okay? And then you'll complete your first quiz later on that week on the Servant Leadership Training course. The week after that, you're going to read McDonald Ordering Your Private World, and you're going to review your notes on Hunter, because you're going to be completing or enhancing, perhaps, your journal questions for weeks 3 to 4. And then test 1 is going to be on Wilson, Drucker, Peters, and Hunter. And then the following week, before we get here, you're going to have read the first 3 chapters of Rodin, the Steward Leader, and then you're going to do your discussion board on what you've learned about servant and steward leadership. You're going to interact with at least 2 others in your class. You're going to also write that team 1-page paper, or a 3-page paper. Okay? Complete your journal questions or enhance them and submit them. Quiz B. So you'll start to see a flow to this. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay? And then Rodin, again, test 2, and then more Rodin and Collins review, and then your journal questions, and your team annotated bibliography for your leader biography. So this is kind of a halfway point where I'm asking you, okay, so you should have already been working and researching toward this, getting some things together for whoever your approved or your leader for your documentary is. So you have the research done by week 8 before spring break. So then it's all just kind of compiling for the visual part of your documentary. Does that make sense? Okay, this is actually a kindness to you, because if I don't put something in there like that, it tends to get drawn out and then it becomes more of a crisis at the end. So it's because I care. Okay, then we turn our attention to the leadership challenge and LDB 3. What is Christian about Christian leadership? Interact with a few of your classmates and write your paper about that same thing. Same process. More leadership challenge. You're going to start reading Leadership and Self-Deception, test 3. More leadership challenge. Write your journal questions. More leadership challenge, and then you're going to finish with your leadership biography, your documentary. We'll watch it in class. And then you're going to read a few articles about the nature of leadership, and I was watching Lord of the Rings yesterday with my kids. Last day of break before we went back to things, and so we were watching it and trying to explain, what the ring represented and the power that it represented, and the pull on people's hearts for that lust for power and that kind of thing. It's kind of along those lines. It's not about the Lord of the Rings, but it's kind of down those lines. And then finally, you complete your journal questions, and the last week is your comprehensive final. What questions do you have about what we just went over? Go ahead.
Do you have any advice on how to find scholarly journals?
Yes. So I have a little tutorial on here that shows you. On Blackboard it says, I don't know what I labeled it, but it's under academic course materials, and then something about APA, and it shows you a PowerPoint, and it says, let's suppose that you want to know what it costs to build a Death Star. What is that? And I walk you through each step in the library to show you what you need to do, how to cite things, and that. So if this is not something that you're comfortable with, it's new to you, that'll walk you through the process. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's called Essentials of APA.
Essentials of APA format.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As just a note, so it's going to really help you guys to utilize the library and the library's website to find their scholarly peer-reviewed articles, and it's actually an option on the left-hand side when you're searching to check those boxes, so that's the only thing that filters into your search results.
Okay, csuniv.edu/library. Okay, and then I want to just, this is so much easier than what it was when you were in your undergrad. I mean, it's so much easier. I can hardly express how much easier it is. So what is leadership? So type something like that in, and then on the left-hand side, you're going to decide that you want to minimize things. So here you got the expanders. Limit to available from CSU scholarly peer-reviewed journals, and now you have 32,000 hits. Okay, and you just have to try to troll these and see what looks like they're going to be useful. Don't all start on the same page or start on what is leadership. Come up with creative variations so that you're not saying the same thing, because you have to have 3 per person, and if you say the same thing, well, the person who landed first they get to keep it, right? I mean, that's the fair way, right?
So you don't have to be logged in?
You will have to log in order to get into
Okay.
the exam. Well, let me see. Sign in. No, I'm not going to do that. Sign in that way. So what it takes and costs to be an ambidextrous manager, linking leadership and cognitive strain to balancing exploration and exploitation. So let's say that I want to check for full text. It's probably it might not make me log in because I'm already on campus. I guess that's what's going on here. View this article from Sage. Okay, and there it is. Now you want to do it in PDF if it's possible, because in PDF you're going to get the page numbers correctly. So when you're setting page numbers, you get that. Let's go back out to another something. Okay, on the side here, see how it says site? Click that and click APA, and that'll get you most of the way there, but it might not be perfect, so please make sure that you get it right, okay? You can't rely on this. And then Permalink, I asked for permalinks. This thing, Permalink here, it comes here, not on top in the link bar, it comes in the middle, okay? Copy that and put retrieve from and that after your article. That is a protection for you, because then I can click on it if I go, that doesn't seem right, and I click on it because I'm a nerd, okay? And so I'll click on it and look through, and sometimes it turns out that you're right. The way that you wrote it, that's the way it was written, and I was wrong, but I would have marked you down if I didn't have that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you have to click on that permalink.
But you have to click on that permalink and say, after your article, after your reference, retrieve from, and click that put that permalink there. Okay?
Yeah, a way to check that is if you guys go back and click on the link, it'll take you to that article. If you just copy and paste from the browser bar at the top, you're gonna get an error message.
Okay, any other questions about the...
I have a program that does all this.
Yeah, but you gotta be careful, make sure it does it right.
Oh, I will.
Okay. Any other questions about the syllabus? What's involved?
They're not all audio books, are they?
No.
There's
So now you can get Leadership and Self-Deception as audio if you want, but the only one that is only audio is that one, is the Servant Leadership Training course. It's not in text. Okay, but it's so good that I couldn't help but use it. You'll appreciate it. Okay? All right, let's do this. Let's take a break, come back at 1:15, and we'll move from there. Okay, so we're going to deal with Woodrow Wilson and Tom Peters and Peter Drucker. Before we do, there was this book I read a number of years ago called The Unforgiving Minute, and I want to read a couple excerpts throughout the class from it. So this is a guy that he went to West Point, and then he went to Ranger School, and he was talking about his experiences through there. And so the instructor says, "Let's go, Rangers, we have a long walk." So we followed behind for miles. The moon cast our shadow on the long road. We walked long enough to see the moon shadows lengthen. Eventually, he slowed down and faced our squad. He moved down the ranks slowly, examining each face like a witness checking out a police lineup. He asked each of us a simple question: "Why are you here?" The answers were predictable, ranging from "for the challenge" to "my platoon sergeant made me." I admitted with the other infantry officers that I hadn't had a choice. "Wrong answer, Ranger," he said to each person before addressing the group. "You're here for one reason." He paused for effect. "You are here for the troops that you are going to lead. You are responsible for keeping them alive and accomplishing whatever mission you're given. I don't care if you're tired, hurt, or lonely. This is for them, and they deserve better. You owe them your Ranger tab. This isn't about you." What do you think?
Yep.
As we talked about that before, what do you want from your leader?
Got your back.
I got your back, right? That's what he's saying. I want you to, it's for them to take care of them. So leadership lesson number one is leadership is not about me. Very often when we start looking at leadership, we think about the leader. It's not about the leader. It's about the people that the leader's following. That's the results, right? And thinking about the leader in isolation is silly, and it doesn't make sense. Okay, so we talked about the syllabus. Here, meet Ben. Let me tell you a little bit about Ben. Ben is a pretty effective manager. He has gotten promoted probably every few years, and he's moving up the ranks in his organization, and he's making the numbers, making more than the numbers. From the little bit that I told you, is he a good leader?
It's just it's an indication.
It's an indication? Is he a good leader?
At least
We don't know how he's doing it.
Yeah, so we don't know yet.
Yeah.
He might be a good leader. He might also be Mussolini,
Yeah.
right? He might be just doing it on the backs of other people and just cranking it out. So we don't know that yet, okay? He's a manager, and we know that he's getting something done, but we don't know whether these people are demoralized when they go home at night, whether they're looking for another job somewhere else. We don't know how he's leading yet from that description. So sometimes we think in terms of the leader saying, well, I push people, but I get results. Okay? What do we just say about leadership? Is that who you want to work for?
No.
I mean, all other things being equal, if you have that, if you have a choice in the matter, that's not what you aspire to, right? Okay? And you have to be really careful about who you choose for your role models. So I have this slide here. When I was in high school, I was in Army JROTC. It was a great experience, right? So by the time I was a senior in high school, I was the cadet battalion commander, a cadet lieutenant colonel. When I walked into a room, 100 some odd people snapped to attention just because I walked in, which was cool the first few times, and then it got irritating because it slows the works down. And I at least understood enough that it was slowing the works down, and I was trying to not do that or whatever, where the battalion commander the year before me would, make a big display about coming in and looking over things. And, that's right, this is my domain. And right, I actually either tried to be there first, or as you were was out of my mouth as soon as somebody had called attention, so I could get them back to what they were doing, right? But my role model here, by watching MASH, was Colonel Potter. Colonel Potter was a yeller. Have any of you ever seen MASH? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. This guy here, he was a yeller. Have any of you ever been in a meeting at work and been yelled at so much that you thought that oh, I see the brilliance of what you're saying here because you yelled at me. I get it. I agree with you. Has anybody ever had that experience? Show me your hands. No hands?
My brain just shuts off.
Right? Yeah, why? Because that's not a way to lead people, right? I mean, that's not an effective strategy. Yeah, you just want to choose your leaders, your leader role models carefully. Okay, mean business, how I save bad companies and make good companies great. Yeah, well, he also destroyed lots of value in the process. I do like this one. This was George Marshall. George Marshall, this is Robert Gates's book. He said George Marshall disliked the truculent personality, the man who confused firmness and strength with bad manners and deliberate discourtesy. Right? So just because you have to deliver a bad message doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it, right? Why can't you preserve that person's dignity? A lot of what we're talking about is very simple. I mean, when you went through that checklist earlier, did any of you have the experience like this checklist is just kind of like kindergarten 101, like be nice, raise your hand, don't cut other people off or take their stuff, right? I mean, isn't that? But a lot of leadership comes down to those simple kind of things. You were about to say?
Well, I was thinking about what you're saying, describing how it may seem simple, but then there's the mistake of how...
It seems simple, but
then there's the mistake that we think that we actually are writing down what we think the appropriate behavior is instead of really looking at ourselves.
Yeah, okay, so if that's a great insight. Now, if you take that and you give it to your boss who's a real jerk, I don't know that you have a boss who's a real jerk, but if, let's say hypothetically you do, how do you think he's going to rate himself on these things?
Excellent.
He's going to unbalance.
All right, excellent, good, excellent, good, excellent, right? Why? Because we tend to oversee our own abilities and things, right? We tend to overvalue or assume that there's more there than there is. The boss first, the leader, the boss drives, the leader coaches, okay? It doesn't take a lot to drive you, right? Just, I'm going to keep whipping you until you do what it doesn't take a lot. It does take a commitment to coach. The boss depends on authority. I've never yet met a leader who said, well, because I'm the manager, vice president, whatever the title is, that's why. And it was a good thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Anybody that has to say that, something went wrong somewhere, and that's almost always a bad sign. The leader depends on goodwill. The boss inspires fear. Leader inspires enthusiasm. The boss says I, leader says we. Boss assigns a task, the leader sets the pace. Boss says get here on time. Leader says he just gets there ahead of time. The boss knows how it's done. The leader shows how it's done. There's a difference, leading by example. The boss makes work a drudgery. The leader makes it a game. The boss says go. The leader says, come on guys, let's go. Right? That's what leadership is. Everybody needs leaders, but nobody needs a boss. I don't know who to attribute this to, but it's just out there, right? But it's a pretty good sampling of things. This is not academic research, so please don't use that for what we're just describing. But it's good. I mean, there's some legitimacy to it. The difference between the boss and the leader is kind of what you see here. Okay? And remember, we said that leadership is...
It's all about me.
No, it's not about you, it's about others.
It is all about you. Now, the greatest collection of me worship ever assembled on one CD. It's all about now, I lift my name on high.
Ever work for a manager like that?
Songs, all about you. This amazing collection is great to share with friends.
If you have a suspect or like that, but are really behind, like that behind closed doors.
Everyone join in.
Oh, but nobody's like that out front about
And
it.
about you. Because you are unique. And you love you. There is none like me. No one else. All this for only $19.95. Operators are standing by to serve you. And I am why I sing, and I am why I live. If you order now, you'll also receive a second CD of Yuletide favorites. Call 1-800-ME-ME-ME or order online at memyselfandI.com. Call today because no one can praise you like you.
All right, that was fun, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so you met people like that? They won't sing that, okay? But that's how they think, right? So when I hear people complain about Trump, I hear many times over something like that as opposed to his policy positions. Now, they might have issues with his policy positions, but it's again and again and again about his, I'm gonna say, narcissism or whatever else, right? Who likes leaders that do that? Okay? Even if you like his policy positions, you're probably like, maybe you could cut down the tweets a little, right?
Bingo.
Okay?
That's right.
So, right? So,
That's right.
and you don't want to work for a guy that's all about himself, because if he's all about himself and you do something that makes him look bad, well, it's over for you, right? Let me tell you about another guy. This was set in the Middle East, and so he's in prison, and he says the book was saying this. The other objects of his exaggerated attentions were the sick, the injured among his men. Well, when any of them fell ill, he put himself in the role of heroic caregiver, giving up his own blankets and his rations to ensure their comfort. The doctor was particularly struck by the tenderness of this leader, displayed toward the most fragile of inmates, the double amputee. He appointed himself as the man's personal valet and assisted him with his bathing, changing, and feeding. Most days, he would simply scoop up the legless man in his arms and carry him to the toilet. Then he got out of prison. He's released from prison, and the leader then, on the other hand, was torn between his two families, the one in his hometown and the one that he had gained in jail. His prison brothers were a cadre of men devoted to him personally and willing to follow him anywhere. With his release, the survival of this family was suddenly in doubt. He traveled all the way to his hometown, visited his mother for a few hours, turned around and drove back through the night in a friend's car to arrive at the prison before daybreak. Now here he was, back inside the hated prison, ministering to other inmates like a field commander, checking on the morale of his troops. The doctor watched for a moment in disbelief. Here, he said afterwards, was a real leader. I knew at that moment I'd be hearing about him, he said. This man was going to end up either famous or dead. What do you think about this guy? Impressive, right?
Yes.
Tell me what you think about him as a leader.
He was shoving aside his own basic needs in order to ensure others were met. And that's something that doesn't happen when you're all about yourself.
You don't tend to see a lot of that. What else?
He was selfless.
Selfless?
Yes.
Anything else?
He wanted to continue.
You know who he is?
A terrorist.
Zarqawi, founder of ISIS. Well, the founder of the thing that became ISIS.
Yeah.
Go back through this. I'm just saying Zarqawi and Islamists instead of the leader.
Oh, okay.
You know what's fascinating about that is that's the same guy that's beheading Nick Berger. Isn't that interesting?
He believed in his own cause. cause.
Yeah, so what's interesting is that leadership actually doing the things that leaders do.
He was a leader just a
Yeah, well, okay, so he was doing the same things that we were all just going, yeah, that's laudable, right?
And he pulls into what he believes because he.
Yeah, so leadership is transferable from one area to another, right? From business or church or home or work. Just do these things, care, and act like you care, and right? But, wow. Okay, so leadership's not about me. Don't forget this lesson. It's transferable. Leadership, it depends on what your definition is not where you want to go, right? Because we don't want to not be able to trust you, right? What do we want in a leader? We don't want this guy either. Why is it that when I always get a whole person when what I really want is a pair of hands? Now this was attributed to Henry Ford. I can't find the original source, but I found a number of sources attributing it to him. Okay? But really? Do any of you want to be working for this guy?
No.
I don't mean that you don't want to work for Ford. I mean you don't want to work for somebody who thinks like this. I really don't want you from the neck up. I just want you to do what I tell you to do. So this is a picture of someone who I used to work with. Her name was Janie, and she used to be the person that would do all the scheduling of your classes when you came in. We've reorganized the organization a number of times in the last few years. So this was Janie, okay? She has a number of facets to her: biological, rational, emotional, financial, familial, spiritual, and she's not a pair of hands, right? And what happens if you think about people that you work with as a pair of hands? She essentially, so I was the director of the MBA and the graduate programs for a number of years, and so she worked essentially on the organizational chart. She would have worked for me, but she didn't work for me. She worked with me. Notice the difference in language? It's a big difference.
Yes.
Right? Why is that a big difference?
You both work together?
Yeah, we work together. And she has convinced me many times to do something that wasn't my natural, like I would have done something different, but as we talked about it, right, you're hearing something else, we talked about it, right? I didn't just say, go do that. So, no, let's kick this around. And she's convinced me many times that her way was right.
Because you listen.
Right. Covey talks about how I can't influence you until I'm willing to be influenced by you. I can't influence you until I'm willing to be influenced by you. So if you're in a position of leadership and somebody is, and you're not listening to your people, they're not going to be nearly as receptive to you. Okay? She has hopes and dreams and aspirations, just like I do. Guess what? If God has a calling on my life, He has a calling on her life as well. And I need to respect that humanity. And if I do, I get very different results than if I don't. You are the people that your direct reports are talking about at dinner every night. How do you like that?
Is that Steve-O?
No. You are the people that your direct reports are talking about at dinner every night. This is Rachel. Rachel used to do a similar job. Again, she also has hopes and dreams and aspirations, and just like Janie, just like me, just like all of you, right? Now, but the reason that I have this picture here is because if you do treat these people like respectfully, like they work with you, not for you, which is a different thing, and that they have their own hopes and dreams and aspirations, guess what? They look out for you too. They take care of you when you're taking care of them. So here, good morning. I have 3 things down on my list that I'd like to go over before the faculty meeting today. Can you come by for like 10 minutes before the meeting at 11? I highlighted before the faculty meeting and before the meeting at 11. Why?
Because it emphasizes what's important.
She was looking out for me.
Yes.
She knows I might not have been aware of the meeting at 11. And she's twice here telling me, hey, can you know, the meeting at 11, right? But she's being very respectful in the process about that. Not saying, hey, I know you're a little absent-minded, so you forget stuff, so you know that meeting's today. She could have done that, and I would have appreciated that. Or she could have just let it slide, and I could have been in trouble somehow right? But, right? So she's looking out. Are you sure that meeting is not today? I'm not doubting you. I just don't want you to miss your meeting, but at a different time, right? So you take care of your people, they'll return that generally, right? Think about this. Think about somebody who loves you, And you know, and you're sure that they love you. I don't mean a stalker. I mean somebody who actually cares, like mom, right? It's hard, I mean, unless you have some bad blood there, it's hard to return love with hate, or to return love with just, I'm not going to be interested, right? If somebody really cares, if somebody really has your back, and you know that they do, it's hard to just not follow up, right? And not return that. It's reciprocal. Okay, here you have minivans. The reason that I have that here is because I'm going to ask you when we meet together again and again about your minivan moments. Now there's a technical word for this in the psychological literature. I'm not going to worry about that, but the way that the reason I call it minivan moments was because when I had 2 kids, I went to go look at a minivan and I bought one, and as I was driving home 2 hours away from the place that I bought it to drive it home, I was driving down the road and I saw minivans everywhere for the first time in my life. Right? I mean, I've seen minivans on the road, but it was like there was this minivan, a caravan of caravans. Right? Why? Because I was now aware of it, and so I'm paying attention. The things that we talk about in this class, you'll start to see in Technicolor in the next few weeks. Okay? You'll have what I call minivan moments. Now I want you to tell me about where you saw things that we just talked about in class, or that you were just reading or listening to, and now here's how it would apply to work. I also have this. Do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? Who's the youngest? You two? Do you know what this is? This thing?
A tape cassette player?
A tape cassette. Have you ever played one?
I think, yeah.
You have? Okay, wow.
A long time ago.
Yeah, okay, a long time ago. Okay, yeah, so, yeah, we're a long time since that. I had one like that when I was like your age, okay, which makes me feel old just saying that, but okay. So I have the forward and reverse buttons. Now, what we see here, you'll be able to kind of like press the fast forward or reverse buttons and say, like, if I see this, then this is probably what's going on in the organization. Or if I see this going on in the organization, I can probably tell you this about the leader. Does that make sense? You'll get to see this. I mean, it's like a little Spidey power.
Signatures and signs.
Yeah, you'll be able to see these kind of things. Just trust me. And then, like the old Ginsu knife ad commercial. Do you remember that? Ginsu. But wait, there's more. Okay, and you're going to see more in-depth context than you've seen before. Okay, let's talk about Leaders of Men by Woodrow Wilson. We're finally getting to the actual content for today. Yeah. We're only two hours in, so we're doing pretty good. All right. So first, before we talk about this, what do you think of it in general? Those of you that didn't just sign up today.
It's a difficult read.
It's a difficult read. What else?
I was okay the first couple pages, and then I just kind of got lost.
Yeah, he's a little dense.
As the saying goes.
It's a little dense, but I'm going to try to pull out some diamonds out of the rough here. Okay, so let's try to do that. So, leaders must be sympathetic, but it's not a sympathy that serves, but a sympathy whose power is to command by knowing its instrument. Okay, that good, bad, or some kind of weird mix of good and bad?
You got to know what you're working with.
That's true. Okay, and?
You have to know the weaknesses and the strengths.
Okay, and? And? A sympathy whose power is to command. I get the command by knowing its instrument. I get the knowing its instrument part. But really, are your people your instruments? Is it about commanding them, or is it about?
It's more about having a relationship.
Yeah, it makes me a little bit nervous, the way that he's approaching this. Okay? Remember Ben?
Yes.
That's what he was doing. It wasn't really a pleasure for those that worked for him. Okay? Men are as clay in the hands of the consummate leader.
Are you developing and molding them?
From the context of what you can see there, I don't think he's worried about them. I think he's worried about him as a leader.
Yeah. Versus
really?
Manipulating them.
Yeah, they're as clay, or do they have hopes and dreams and aspirations?
Yeah.
Which is it? Because how you think is going to lead to how you act. And if you think it's this as opposed to that, it's going to be different, right? Men are not led by being told what they do not know. Persuasion is a force, but not information. And persuasion is accomplished by creeping into the confidence of those you would lead. I don't like the way he said that because it's creepy, right? But creeping into the confidence of those you lead. Yes, you do need to have the confidence of those you lead, but that's a weird, kind of creepy way of saying it.
Is he referring to destruction of confidence or building of it too? That's, yeah.
So men are not led by being told what they do not know. So you have to reinforce what they know. He's going to have a great line about the ears must ring with the voice of the people or something along those lines in just a little bit. You remember that one? Yeah? Okay, so well, let me skip ahead and we'll get to that. No reformation may succeed for which the major thought of the nation is not prepared. Right? So, no leader is going to come out and say, hey guys, let's all be racist now. And it's not, I mean, that's not going to work. Follow me. I mean, right? The nation is not prepared to do that. Right? Okay, so they are prepared for, say, the Me Too movement or others. See how fast the Me Too movement went? How much traction that got? How quickly? Because the nation was prepared for that mentally. They were there. And then when it hit, it became an avalanche. Okay? Men are not led by being told what they do not know. We already said that one, right? Yes. I went the wrong way. The ear of the leader must ring with the voices of the people. He cannot be of the school of the prophets. What does he mean by cannot be of the school of the prophets?
It can't be a one-way conversation.
Yeah, the prophets were coming to condemn the king and say, bring essentially covenantal lawsuits from God against the king and say, you broke these commandments and this is what's going to happen. That's not what the leader needs to be. He's saying his ear must ring with the voice of the people. He must understand what their desires are, what their wants are, right? He has to know them. Okay? Every successful reform movement has had, now again, Wilson is talking political leadership here. I mean, that's where it came from, right? This isn't an organization, but it's some great context for what we're talking about. Every successful reform movement has had as its efficient cry some principle of equality or morality already accepted, well nigh universally, but not yet universally applied. How did Martin Luther King approach things? Did he say, well, we want stuff too? No, he said, what? We wrote this check about these rights, and it's come back insufficient funds, right? He said, we believe these things. Isn't this what you say you believe? Yeah. We all believe this. Well, yeah. Why is this not applied to us? Yeah. That's what Wilson's saying here. Okay? I don't tend to agree with Jesse Jackson a whole lot, but I saw this on the news once where he said, look, the issue is not, we called the movement wrong. We shouldn't have called it Black Lives Matter. We should have asked, do Black Lives Matter? You see a difference there? Yeah. There's a world of difference there. And right there, how do you say no? Right? And then you don't get into Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, all lives matter. You don't get into that debate. You just say, look, do Black Lives Matter? I mean, it's just that simple, and that is a much better, I mean, he's got it right. Mm-hmm. Leaders of men, the man of the times, to read Voltaire must have made him feel that he was reading his own thoughts, laughing his own laughs, speaking his own scorn. What's that mean? Yeah, Voltaire, he sounds like me. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I agree with him because, well, he sounds smart. He sounds like me. Sounds like how I would have said it, right? Leaders must love those that they lead. I do not believe that any man can lead who does not act under the impulse of profound sympathy, which is of the heart rather than the intellect. Okay, why did I put this one up? This is really important. Especially you quantitative types. You're one, you're probably one, you're definitely one, right? You're probably more quantitative than not.
Yep.
Yeah, you're surrounded. What are you?
I'm qualitative.
Okay, all right. Okay. And you're kind of like quantitative, especially you quantitative types, okay, which is of the heart rather than of the intellect. You want to be up here too much. We don't listen, followers don't listen to leaders because they make a better intellectual argument. They listen to the leader because we know you care. I remember there's this passage in Dinesh D'Souza's biography of Reagan. I read this 20 years ago, and it's resonated with me since, where he was talking about, when Reagan was making a speech, he didn't, and I'm almost directly quoting him, because I'm telling you that because there's an effect here. He said, when Reagan was giving a speech, he didn't want people to say, well, that's a very interesting intellectual argument you have here. He wanted the guy sitting at the bar watching him on TV to go, damn straight! That's right. Right? That's what he wanted. He was appealing to the emotions. If you forget the emotions, everything else doesn't work. I mean, you have to go through the heart to get to the head in leadership. Okay? Working with McConnell, there's this book by Bob Woodward. Remember Bob Woodward, the Watergate journalist? In a book called The Price of Politics. Working with McConnell could be tricky, but he, Obama, and Biden had been working together in this, or McConnell and Biden had been working together in the Senate for 25 years, and both knew the foremost Senate club rule: you get some, I get some. What do you think? I kind of hate that for politics, but that's the way they're going to actually get something done. What happens when one side overrides the other? You just saw this recently with tax reform, and so there's going to be some sour grapes from that. And you saw that in a huge way, same way with Obamacare. And there were lawsuits like hours after Obamacare. Why?
Because it was distributive. Somebody loses and somebody wins.
One side won all the marbles and the other side got nothing. No. Obama said, and I'm very concerned about not making Boehner look weak. This was quoted in the book. And I'm understanding of the fact that he every time he goes into his caucus has to throw them a bone, and they can't see this as a victory for me. Now that's astute. Now he didn't do it with Obamacare, but it's astute. He understands it, right? There's a really interesting passage in documentary about Nelson Mandela. He said the basic lesson is that you can only, this is de Klerk saying this, F.W. de Klerk, who preceded Mandela. The basic lesson is that you can only negotiate successfully if the negotiating parties also go out of their way to see the other side's point of view, and understand that if the negotiating parties are willing to make concessions from all sides so that nobody goes away from the negotiating table being the victor and the other one being the vanquished. Here, I'll even show you the clerk saying this if I can find it.
The basic lesson is that violence does not bring peace. The basic lesson is that you can only negotiate successfully if the negotiating parties also go out of their way to see the other side's viewpoint and understand, and if the negotiating parties are willing to make concessions from all sides so that nobody goes away from the negotiation table being the victor and the other one going away being the vanquished.
Right? Yeah. Isn't that kind of what we were talking about with the Chicago police? Right? With the new police chief, what his message has to be to the community? Go ahead.
The other interesting part about knowing all about the opposite or the other party's position is it gives you an opportunity to identify other things you can give them, such as throwing them a bone.
Sure. Getting to know them is always a good thing. Okay, so that was Leaders of Men, Woodrow Wilson. Again, that was political. Peter Drucker, if you don't know Peter Drucker, he wrote that. He wrote 40 books in his lifetime. He's the father of modern management. He is like the guy in the field when we were talking about management throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, into the 90s. Okay? Most important task of an organization's leader is to anticipate crisis. Okay? Now he's talking about management, but he's using the word leader and manager interchangeably, right? But as a manager, what's your job? Your job's kind of to make sure the system's still working, so thinking ahead. Military, the trust in officers is essential. Yeah. Problems of success ruin more organizations than failure. Ever seen that?
We get complacent.
Yeah, we get complacent, or we think that what worked before is going to work again. Sure, I'm just going to do the same thing. How to pick a leader. Now, this is really interesting. First, look at the candidate's strengths. Okay. Second, match your strengths with the organization's needs. Okay. Third, look for integrity. And he says this: I always ask myself, would I want one of my sons to work under that person? Actually, I mean, I'm not nearly as interested in this as I am in that.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
What's that? It's that do you have my back thing that we talked about earlier. Okay? Anybody in a leadership position who thinks he's a great man or great woman will kill himself and the agency. right? It's all about me. Run from that. Do not work for that department, the manager of that department. Okay? You don't want to see a pimp when you look in the mirror. That is, you don't want to sell your soul. You don't want to have sold out and then be something that you don't like to see when you look back. This is the essence of leadership. To every leader, there's a season. Churchill and FDR were right for World War II. Others are great leaders in calm times. Most organizations need somebody who can lead regardless of the weather. So while it's true that we need people who can lead for this season or that, not all leaders are perfectly suited to lead during calm times or turbulent times or whatever. You just need to be aware of that. Effective leaders, the place does not collapse when they leave. Right? Now, some want it to collapse when they leave because that's proof that, see, I mean, while I was here, all right, I held it together. Now, if that's you, then you're singing It's All About Me, right?
I told you you need me.
That's right. They maintain their individuality. They work hard, but they also have a life outside the office. So he's talking about effective leaders. Work hard, but they have a life outside of the office. If you have nothing else going on, that's one of those fast forward, rewind, you're enmeshed in the system kind of things, right? If as a leader you do this, then here's what I know about the organization. You're enmeshed, and it's probably dysfunctional because you're trying to have too much control, and right? Because it's all, and you're confusing the organization with your life. Relying on a team, Douglas MacArthur built a great team. Now, he was a little bit vain, right? In spite of his vanity, he listened to the most junior members first, uninterrupted. Hey, I gotta like that. There's something that he's doing.
That's not easy.
That's not easy, right? Especially when they're not making a lot of sense, or you know, he might have heard them along, but he listened. He forced himself to listen to his team. Finally, keep your eye on the task and not on yourself. The task matters, and you are a servant. Right? Okay, that's Drucker. Leadership is a foul-weather job. What do you think of what Drucker had to say?
It's right.
Pretty good.
Yeah, he's spot on.
He's pretty good.
Okay?
That was a much better read.
It was a lot easier to read, yes. Okay, and Drucker's not, he's no slouch. He's got a pretty powerful vocabulary himself, but Wilson was a little bit trickier. What do you think of Wilson's article as you were, now that we covered some of those things? Was he on? Yes, no? Quiet side?
I'm just gonna fess up, I didn't get a chance to read it.
You didn't get a chance to read that one? Okay, from the excerpts that we had here.
You think the time frame maybe he was?
Yeah, the time frame probably influenced it.
1890s.
But he was still a little bit of let me see how I can pull the strings on the puppets.
Yes.
But he was right that he has to listen. He's got that part down.
Yeah.
He just doesn't respect the humanity, and that's going to become a problem.
Yeah.
Okay? Drucker was a little easier. Okay, back to the Unforgiving Minute. The only way to gain my squad's loyalty was to show loyalty to them. I served them, not the other way around. They needed to, now that's interesting for a lieutenant to be talking about, or I guess he was at this point he was already a lieutenant, but he was working within the squad, within his, yeah, at any rate. So he's an officer, and he's talking about how he serves his troops, right? It's not what you would expect necessarily, just from the outside looking in. They needed to know that I put their welfare above my own. In that sense, I imitated what I had seen my father do in his crews, making sure that they had the equipment and training that they needed, asking their families, or asking after their families, covering for them during family emergencies. And then at the end of a long march along one of the ridges above Buckner, and before setting up my own tent, I first went around the squad and checked their feet one by one for blisters and swelling, doling out foot powder and moleskin as necessary. After sweating through thick socks, what their feet needed most was deodorant. Leadership smelled like blue cheese.
But he doesn't like that anymore, so
What do you think?
It's impressive.
it really
Yeah,
says
I mean, he's got it right.
Yeah.
He's got it right.
He's got it right. Leadership is not necessarily glamorous. It's about caring. It's sometimes smelly, right? But he's got it right. You want to say something? You look like you were.
Nope.
No.
But he
Okay.
makes it known that it's a learned behavior.
It's a learned behavior. Yeah, he had a good model in his father.
Yeah.
Right? Taking care of others. I read an account of, and I'm not sure if it's, whether this is apocryphal or not, of Jim Mattis doing something similar in Vietnam, I believe it was, where patrols would be sent out, and periodically he would take the place of one of the people that was on that patrol while he was in charge. Okay. And to relieve somebody like on a holiday or something along those lines.
He did that all the time.
Yeah. So I've read accounts, but I haven't been able to find I have a higher bar of what I believe is true. I have to find the original source of whatever it is, and that there's something to be said for that. How do you not like a commander who's willing to get in the trenches with you?
Yep.
Right? I mean, there's just something very different there. Okay, Tom Peters. So Tom Peters had a bunch of really interesting concepts here. I'm going to highlight some of them. Oh, by the way, Tom Peters follows me on Twitter, so there's that. And yeah, okay. Yeah, that was just a joke. I mean, he actually does, but I was just throwing that in there for fun.
Very cool.
Let's see. So first thing, leaders create opportunities. Nobody transforms anyone else. Instead, we create opportunities for people. Now let's stop there. If you talk about how I'm going to transform you, you have godlike power. You're molding this clay. No, you don't. What you do is you set an environment where this person can grow. You get to know what his needs are, and you get to equip him with the things that he needs so that he can do those. You set it up for him. Okay? You create opportunities for people. It's important to understand that distinction. A lot of this comes down to, what is this human being? This person that's following you? Is it a human being that's worthy of respect, or is it something more like an object that you can command? Leaders do not transform people. Leaders instead construct a context in which voyages of mutual discovery can take place. I like the terms. Right? Leaders resort to the command and control model when they are scared. Mm-hmm. Now, that's one of those fast forward, rewind things. If you see a leader who is scared, he's going to use that command and control model. If you see somebody who's doing that command and control model, you better believe that leader, that's the only way that he knows how to lead. He's not willing to give you enough rope to let you go out and try things and let you extend, because it might reflect badly on him. We don't want that.
The dictator.
Right, but that leader, if he's not willing to do that, he can't trust you. Okay? All right. The ability to lead, to engage others, and to turn them on rarely coincides with being at the tip top of the individual performance heap. Isn't that interesting? This is Tom Peters. He knows what he's talking about. He's been at this game since the late 70s, writing In Search of Excellence and other books as a consultant, and one of the top leadership and business experts and authorities. I think he's probably onto something. I've observed that too. The very best individual performers don't tend to want to be in charge of people. They just want to keep performing.
Yep.
Right? So the most effective leaders don't have to have been the absolute best performer in order to be a good performer as a leader. Yeah?
I agree.
Yep. Okay.
You see that like in sports and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
great coaches. Yeah, okay, so you played the game, but
Third string.
oh, we didn't pay any attention to you when you were a player, but now you're a coach and you're awesome, right? Excellent observation, by the way. Jack Welch didn't have a vision. In my book, Jack was the premier talent developer of our times. That's interesting. What did he do? He made leaders. But it wasn't because I have a vision that's no, he just focused on leadership development. Roosevelt was not much of an economist. Churchill was a questionable talent, yet they kept hope alive. A leader, Napoleon famously said, is a dealer in hope. You kind of have to be optimistic, right? Who do you want to follow? You want to follow Eeyore? Well, it's not going to work. It's probably already broken beyond repair. You want to follow him? Anybody? Eeyore? Oh, you want Tigger? Hey, yeah, we're going to go bouncy, right? That's who you want to follow. There's a world of difference between those two, right? Okay. The hair stands on the back of his neck, I expect, when he examines P&L or balance sheet. He loves to tease the most extraordinary conclusions from the most obscure, gigantic data sets. It makes him chortle. He hums. No baloney when he plays with numbers. I've observed it. I come to call this type of leader the IPM, the Inspired Profit Mechanic. So it's a different type of leader, right? So one type is like Jack Welch, developing people. But another one is somebody who really loves to get into the data and can see things. I mean, he can see the patterns, right? There's a place for that kind of leader. Mm-hmm. Now, what he's telling you is that not all leaders are the same, because there's another type of leader, or other types of leaders here. Okay? We were lucky indeed that we had Adams, Jefferson, Washington, Tom Paine, and Alexander Hamilton, James Madison remove a single strut from that structure, and we're in a colony of Britain. It's an interesting way of saying it, right? Because they all play different parts. There's this great statue in Richmond, Virginia, where it has Washington and Patrick Henry and I'm trying to remember who else, but Washington's on his horse with his sword, and Jefferson. Washington's on his horse with his sword out. Patrick Henry is giving a speech, and Jefferson is writing the Declaration, right? And now what would happen if you took them and just rotated them one? And you had Jefferson leading the army, and you had Washington giving a speech who was notorious for being silent. And maybe Henry could have written the Declaration, but I mean, you understand the difference? It just wouldn't work the same way. You need that diversity there. Okay? You need a visionary, you need that visionary chief, you need that people person, you need the inspired prophet mechanic. So leadership isn't just about whatever you thought a leader should be. It's not that particular archetype. There's more dimensions to it, is what he's saying. Leaders love the mess. Chad said, I'm not comfortable unless I'm uncomfortable. The definition of crappy leadership, the leader who needs to be comfortably in control. Let's pause there for a minute. You ever met a crappy leader? Yeah. Somebody who has to be comfortably in control? Oh, don't rock the boat. That's, you know, leadership's about going to that next place. It's not, managing is about keeping the machine running, right? Leadership's about change. It's about moving to that next opportunity. In selecting leaders, we must be assiduously on the lookout for those who get their jollies in the face of madness, while others waffle or fold. What do you think of that? People that really enjoy that. You get the feeling that, I don't know, I got the feeling that Obama was a little tired when he finished office, and I really saw that with George Bush. But I got the feeling that Bill Clinton, like if we could have, like, hey guys, you want to change this amendment so I can stay? He would have been like, let's go, right? Like he just dug this, right? Yeah. If your personality, you're going to be an effective leader if you dig doing that. Now it could be in different dimensions. It could be the people person or the inspired prophet mechanic, or what was the other? The visionary. Right? It could be a number of different ways of doing it. Introverts can be leaders too. They have to work the system very differently. But they can be introverts too, or they can be leaders too. But you gotta enjoy it. You're never gonna be successful at something you don't enjoy. Okay. Ronald Reagan radiated an almost transcendent happiness. Reagan probably would have stayed too, but I mean, Alzheimer's would have caught up with him. Here's the Rudy Giuliani thing. I think Rudy Giuliani. Rudy showed up when it really mattered on 9/11. As one wag put it, he went from a lame duck philandering husband to Time Magazine's Man of the Year in 117 days. Right? Now, I grew up in the New York City media market. I understand what that was like because I remember watching Mayor Koch and Mayor Dinkins and Mayor Giuliani. He did not have a lot of good press in his own city. I mean, he did some things well with ComStat, but other things, he's kind of like, 9/11 transformed everything. Became America's mayor. Okay? Leaders side with the action faction. There's a war on between the people who are trying something and the people who are trying to keep them from doing it wrong. Ever seen that? In the office, there's bureaucratic hurdles that keep you from there, and there are people, oh, we've never done it that way before. Oh, that can't possibly work. The naysayers, right? Leaders honor rebels. It's fairly common for companies to pay close attention to their most disgruntled customers. We see that all the time. Unfortunately, we rarely extend the idea of listening to dissidents to a group that's even more important. Ticked off employees. What do you think? Why don't we listen to them?
Oh, they're just ranting.
Oh yeah, they're just, yeah, what are we saying when we do that? That's good, I want to park on that for a moment. What are we saying?
Your opinion doesn't matter.
Your opinion doesn't matter. What else are we saying? Let's get more philosophical.
We don't care about you.
You as a being are not nearly as important as I am as a being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good way to put it.
Because I'm obviously doing my job.
Because
You're the problem.
there's a Dilbert comic that says, she has the boss saying, well, you know, I think you're stupid because you do the same work that I do and I get paid more for it. Right? Well, I mean, they don't think you matter, they're not listening, and this doesn't make sense. Okay, if we think about this in economic terms, employees are customers in the labor market, right? So why would you treat your internal customers poorly? If you know that treating your external customers is the key to your success, why would you treat your internal customers poorly? What are you doing?
You're raising the cost of your labor.
You are raising the cost of your labor because you're going to have more turnover, or they're going to slack. They're going to pull back and just go, okay, if that's what you want me to do, I'll just do my job, and I won't. Right?
You're going to have more money.
Now, here's one of those fast forward rewinds. If they're, well, okay, I'm not just going to do my job. I'm not going to do any more. What do we know about the leader? What's he doing? He's demoralizing them by something like this, right? By not listening to them, not caring, right? Rarely does an awesome leader get, well, I'm just going to do my job and stick to my own position. That's it. Okay. Recent Gallup research shows that 55% of employees are effectively tuned out. The remainder, 19%, are actively at work sabotaging. That's crazy. Okay, 26% support the company's current goals. Reward excellent failures. Punish mediocre success. Wow, why?
We want people to figure things out that might work better.
And the only way that we're going to get there is if we don't crucify you when you make a mistake. Right? I want my leader to have my back. I'll follow you. I mean, let's go on the journey. I'm there. I'm signed up. But don't just kick me to the curb if I make a mistake. Okay? Leaders nurture others. Ralph Nader said, I start with the premise that the function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. I don't agree with Ralph Nader a whole lot, but here, yeah, he's absolutely right. What's your point when you're a leader? If your point is to gather as many followers, you're trying to be like a little dictator over them. Your point should be to grow them as fast as possible to make them leaders. Yeah.
Is the place going to collapse when you move on?
Well, but then they needed me. So it's all about me, right? Namely, leaders don't create followers. They create energized, autonomous leaders throughout the organization, starting with inspired youth at the bottom. They help others discover new worlds, encourage leaders who invent new worlds, leaders who outstrip and dethrone their punitive leaders. What do you think of that? We want leaders throughout various levels of the organization. We want to grow them into those capacities. Mark McCormick insisted that there are times, and not at all infrequently, when one should fly 5,000 miles for a 5-minute meeting. I've taken this advice. Leadership is, after all, in the end, purely personal. I'm going to pause on that. Leadership is personal. If you think you're leading people and you don't have a personal relationship with those people, you don't know, if you don't know their names, there's a problem, right? If you don't know things about them, or, family, or, some really, kind of normal things that somebody who's a friend would know, you're probably not being very effective. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Love politics, or don't expect to get anything done during your tenure. Politics equals getting things done through people. People who generally love office politics tend to be, I don't mean like the vindictive, slimy, let's stab you in the back, but if they are okay with wading out into the office politics and, all right, let's make this thing happen. right? That's the kind of leader that usually is going to be effective and get things done. Yep, we're willing to work out and get into it. Leaders master their organizations. Effective leaders, even presidents, are masters of the end run. Effective leaders mostly avoid rather than fight the old culture. They don't try to take it on head on. They try to rebuild it with new leaders. It's interesting. Okay, the message is if you're desperately pursuing a victory in a popularity contest, you're not a leader. If you need that validation, something went wrong. Okay? One of my friends put it bluntly, look, Tom, leaders aren't allowed to have bad days, especially on bad days. That might be the best advice of anything that he said here. Right? What happens when you have a bad day and you go nuts?
Everybody else has a bad day.
There is a huge ripple effect through the organization. You have a bad day and you bring that mood in, everybody is contaminated by it. You have a flu, they get pneumonia. That make sense? You can't do that. In fact, you know, and somewhere else, I asked students to put together kind of a list of, you know, personal leader. This is in BUSI 619. We'll teach in the summer. Have a list of, you know, their own little sayings and other things along those lines of how they're going to guide their own behavior. One of mine is everybody's entitled to a bad day except me. Right? So now I'm saying as the leader, everybody else is entitled to have a bad day. I'm not. Now, I might be able to have a bad day when I get along with my friends somewhere else, my professor friends, and I get together with them and talk about whatever else, but not in front of you. Right? I have to take that out. I can't do that in my context. Otherwise, I destroy trust. Right?
Yeah, we have a guy going through a divorce. He's a leader in our company.
Mm-hmm.
He actually stepped down during this period because he says he doesn't think that's a good example to set for the employees.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, so he actually stepped out of that position and just doing the engineering position.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and he is what you're like. A lot of the stuff we're talking about. He is a very good example of an excellent leader
Mm-hmm.
and how he knows people and does stuff. And even at the point where he thought he would influence people in a negative way.
Yeah, that's some crazy emotional intelligence. I mean, good.
Yeah.
Crazy, powerful emotional intelligence. Leaders enjoy leading. Leaders must get a kick out of leading. Anybody get a kick out of that? I don't mean the kick out of controlling and dominating people. I really kind of enjoyed my time. When I was the director of the graduate programs, fun. I mean, there was a lot of, there were some things that were painful. Certain meetings were not all that exciting, and certain paperwork, but making things happen or doing things to make sure that, a student was made whole, or we fixed this problem, or we created that course, or we got to be creative and do these things. It was fun, right? If leadership is not fun, my wife's as introverted as I am extroverted, and getting out in front of people, no, right? That might not be your thing. It's okay. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be your thing. Now, you can still lead as an introvert, as I said before, but yeah, I mean, if you can't make it into a way that it's going to be fun, if it's drudgery to lead, you're not going to be terribly successful at it. Okay? If you don't love leading, look quickly for the nearest exit. Don't try to fake it. Okay? Find another way. And now, you're saying you're an engineer?
I am, yes, sir.
IT something engineer?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's interesting here is that in technical professions, they found, and sales too, technical professions and sales, they found that what they were doing was they were, losing their best people because they'd find a really good technical guy or a really good salesman, and then they'd promote him and make him a leader in charge of that unit.
That.
And yeah, the guy that's thrived at doing that thing gets in charge, and he's like, oh crap, now I got to go see these people each day and try to, I have to hear their problems all day, right? And no, so you have to like the idea of getting their problems, right? When I was in that role, I put my desk all the way toward the door so that when you walk past my door, you would see I was right there, right in front of the door, right? So it was easy for you. You didn't have to do anything. Hey, how are you? Hey, you got a minute? My answer was always, sure I do. I've got time because that's my job, right? Whether I had time or not, I have time because that's my role. Now, went back to my classroom. I have a bookshelf between, if you walk into my office, there's a bookshelf between where you can't see through my doors might be open, but you have to have that extra barrier. You were just in there today, right? Okay, that bookshelf is intentional. Leave me alone. I want to be academic and study and think great thoughts and attend to my students' stuff and that kind of thing. Now, if you're in there, if you stop in, fine. I'm happy to talk to any of my students, but there's a difference between all the heavy traffic of professors and stuff up and down the hall and that. Do you understand?
Yep.
Right? So you want to make yourself available, but you have to like it. If you don't like it, you're going to have a hard time with it. Leaders know themselves. Leadership is personal. It's a mutual discovery process. Mutual discovery process. You're learning things, they're learning things, you're growing together. Leaders who are not comfortable with themselves tend to become control freaks. If you're not comfortable with yourself, you become a control freak. If you don't trust your employees, you become a control freak. If you are scared, you become a control freak. It's part of that fast forward rewind process. Leading is granting exploration rights to one's followers. Now think about how that was phrased. Granting exploration rights, because otherwise the leader would be thinking, I can tell you what to do, right? But if I say, sure, go out there, I'm not going to control that. I have to be confident in myself that he's not going to implode, and I should have to know him well enough to be able to do that, right? Then I have to know that I can give her a long tether because I trust her. But if I don't trust you, what am I going to do? Pull you right back in, right? Oh no, you're in arm's reach now. No, I can have you do what I need you to do, like a puppet.
Puppet master.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a big difference. Catch-22, people are only 100% engaged if they are perceived charge of their personal quests. So they're only really going to fire on all cylinders when you have actually given them that latitude to go do that thing. Not when you pretend. Okay, you can put it, ever been to a pretend show where, the boss is saying, yeah, sure, we're empowered, and, you're really not empowered. I mean, if you actually try to do the thing, no, stop that. That's bad, right? You can tell the difference. Leaders accept responsibility. To play the blame game destroys credibility of the blamer leader faster than any other single act. Anybody ever thought, wow, I so admire the way that you take credit for my work and blame me when something goes wrong. That's amazing. That is just, yes, I want that. Nobody thinks that way, right?
You have to be quite masochistic.
Right, you might, yeah, okay, so if you're masochistic. Yeah, so blaming others destroys credibility, right? Because what are you saying? You're not safe.
Yep.
As soon as something goes wrong, you're going to blame me? That's not safe. Okay, I'll do it tell me exactly what to do. I'll just check the boxes and I'll sit down. That's what you get. Go ahead.
Eyes forward.
Eyes forward?
Yeah, so we always hear that where I work. It's like, just keep your eyes forward, like at one of the places. No, at a place I used to work at.
Okay.
And they're like, don't worry about it, eyes forward. You keep it what you're doing and that's it. And that was horrible leadership. And now I work in an environment where, what do you think about it? What can we do better here? Everybody,
yeah.
You're talking 150 people, I can go to anyone in the building, and anyone in the building, we get ideas, and we'll have meetings and stuff.
That's a lot better. I worked one place years ago where they had a phrase, get off the radar. I mean, how awful is that? You don't want the upper ups to notice you because, that's bad. Whoa. Yes?
I remember one command I was in when I was active duty Marine. The second day I got there, all of a sudden I realized I needed to make one focus, and it's on getting out of here safely without getting your career destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
It was that bad.
Wow. Leaders express their passion. Vision is a love affair with an idea. Vision is a love affair with an idea. It's not just about a vision, here's what we're going to do. No, I mean, if you passionately, wow, that's where we're going. Now, it can't just be your idea. It's got to be a collective. Remember the leader's ears must ring with the hearts, with the voices of the people, right? If we're all in love with that idea, it's going to be very easy to get where we're trying to go. I said leadership was all about love. Love, as defined by Tom Peters, is passion, appetite for life, engagement, commitment, great causes, and a determination to make a difference, shared adventures, bizarre failures, growth, insatiable appetite for change. That's very different than just, our vision is to be 5% profitable this quarter, right? It's pretty different. Okay, leaders know when to leave. None of us, it turns out, are men or women for all seasons. And it's time to go, you need to know it's time to go, right? Maybe it's time to move on, or in your example, it was time for that guy, at least for the season, to step out.
Yep.
Leaders do stuff that matters. Sometimes I think that leadership, all the leadership literature stinks. Too much of the focus is on tactics and motivation. Great leaders are not merely great at leading, they are great at introducing others to take novel journeys to places of surpassing importance. Like the way that's said? There's something really,
Getting them absolutely engaged.
Yeah, and it's a quest. I mean, it's Lord of the Rings as opposed to Office. Okay? Now, I want you to do this for me. I want you to think about the best leader that you've ever followed. Okay? Get that guy in your head, lady in your head, whoever it is. I want you to do this. Put your hands up in the air, or one hand up in the air. Just do this right now. Okay, one hand up in the air. When you get that person who is the best leader that you've ever followed in your head, you can drop your hand. Got it? Okay, tell me the characteristics of that leader. Go.
Well, it was the Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force, aircraft maintenance, people person, always engaged, always interested in us as a person, you know, demanding with tasks, but expected results, always looking out for all of us in the aircraft maintenance unit.
Okay, go.
A Master Sergeant with a last name of Wallace in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
He wanted to know about how you were doing personally when it came to the married Marines. He wanted to know how all their families were doing. Really good with names. He was also he had high standards. If you tried to finagle your way out of stuff, he would make you pay harshly. But if you worked your butt off, then he would constantly throw things your way or let you have extra time off.
Okay.
Constantly reward people.
Okay, go.
And student organization advisor I had in college, she was always communicative, cared about my growth, my learning from failures that I would make, never blaming me, and always thinking about all the students in the group as a whole rather than thinking of her own reputation or anything. She always thought about us as a group.
Awesome. Go.
A team leader in engineering, and he would always, everything that was done was what the team had done. Nothing ever was his work, but a lot of times he's the one that was a big part of us being successful at getting it completed, but he never took he always made sure everyone was all right, always made sure during holidays everybody had somewhere to go. You know, it was just like more of the whole team was like a family, and more than that, you could watch them with other teams.
So there's a big difference between saying we're like a family and actually doing the things that your big brother would do for you, right? And you can tell the difference very easily. Go ahead.
An old supervisor, I mean, he was very, he was always places on time to meetings and everything, and very courteous with your time and open to new ideas. You know, if we, for a process, if we wanted to improve it, he'd listen and ping pong back and forth, and he'd, you know, move it forward.
Okay.
So.
Good.
Caring and compassionate, always wanted to know what I thought, and took my advice on things.
That's interesting, that mutual listening to that person and is being you can only be influenced if you're open to influence, right? Now, you started off by saying he was a Air Force this or a Marine that, but if you took those pieces out and you just heard what they did, didn't they all sound kind of similar? They cared about you, they had your back, right? That's what leadership is. Is your head full yet? With some interesting ideas? Okay, so here's the last thing, what was related to it. Rudyard Kipling said, "I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and how and where and who." And here we're going to be looking at who is involved in leadership, what happens during the process, where does it take place, when does it happen, why does leadership happen, how does it work. We're going to answer all those questions, but if you got a good dose of ahas in this class, good. That's the first step. You're going to go out and get some more as you get into the literature, and then we're going to conclude with the discussion board, and we'll keep moving from there. Okay.